We are rolling.
I'd like to call this Ledyard Town Council meeting to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mrs. Ingalls?
Here.
Mr. Malone?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Here.
Mr. Sebelia?
Here.
Mr. Soms?
Here.
Mr. Washington?
Here.
9 here, 0 absent.
Apologize for missing the public hearing. I was at my son had his first walkthrough for college tour by a coach.
Wow.
Excellent.
Very good. Excellent. Let's see, we have no presentations. Do any residents or property owners wish to speak at this time? Hearing none, are there any commissioners, committees, or board reports? None. Comments of town councilors? Councilor Ingalls.
I had the privilege to represent the town council at a hike on the Tri-Town Trail last week. It was so informative for different reasons, including that there were different experts there. It was really interesting to have Chad Frost there, who's been involved with the concept of the project, all along. I don't remember everyone's name, but there was someone, I think maybe her name was Megan, Scott, you would know, who was so helpful in helping us identify what birds we were hearing, what trees we were seeing, just enjoying the nature of it, the history of it. I certainly did not expect it to be more than a 3-hour hike, and the 80-year-old among us kept pace. So good on her. It was just it was such an enjoyable hike, and what a treasure. And just massive shout out of gratitude to every single volunteer who has poured their time into blazing that trail.
And thank you for attending on our behalf, Andra. We appreciate it. Any other counselors have comments? Can wave their hand. Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the public hearing minutes of March 10th and the regular meeting minutes of March 10th.
So moved, Councilor Dombrowski.
The motion's been made. Is there a second? Please.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any discussion, corrections? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sebelia?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls?
Yes.
Mr. Malone?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. You have your communications list, your referrals. We'll move on to subcommittee reports and liaison reports. Let's start with subcommittee admin.
The administration committee has not met since the last town council meeting, but we do have one item on the agenda.
Thank you. Any questions for admin? Community relations. You're muted, Mike.
Sorry. The Community Relations Committee met last Wednesday, excuse me. And just as a reminder for everybody, on April 7th at 6:30, there's going to be a public informational. It's going to be addressing social services and youth services. And they're also going to have an individual related to mental health there. I should say drugs and addiction, excuse me. So I'm urging everybody to attend. It's by virtual. It's a Zoom meeting. It's going to expound on some of the services that are available to the town. And it talks about some of the cases that we have a lot of services available that are being underutilized, which is unfortunate given this pandemic kind of era we live in right now. And would be great if we could get more use out of those services. So spread the word.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for that committee? Yes, Andra.
I would just add that Roxanne and Regina are helping us put together a Facebook event link so that we can share it each on our personal Facebook pages if we would like to. And I would recommend that we do. Thanks.
Very good. Finance.
Finance met actually before we met last week, we held 3 budget workshops on March 4th, 8th, and 11th to review the mayor's proposed F21-22 budget. And at present, the proposed budget represents a modest 0.25 increase. That's 0.25 increase over the in the overall budget, driven by contractual increases and mitigated by spending cuts in non-contractual areas. Due to the recent reval and associated increase in the grand list, the mill rate is forecast at this point to decline by 1.25 mils. The final difference could still change as the town receives an updated healthcare forecast and new information about revenue from the state budget. The current budget does not incorporate recent appropriations to Ledyard of $1.4 million from the American Rescue Act because the funding cannot be used to fund pensions or lower taxes. During the budget meetings, the Finance Committee meets with each general government department head to review their budget requests line by line. We compare each line item to past years as well as the amount spent to date in the current year. The meeting was held in person with the attendance of the mayor, the finance director, the assistant finance director, most of the councilors, and 1 representative from each department to limit in-person interactions. Other councilors, including myself, department members, and 1 resident, attended online. Between 5 and 6 town councilors attended every meeting. The committee was disappointed that so few residents attended, but is hopeful that more residents will review the sessions, which are all recorded and available on the town website. The committee held its regular meeting this past Wednesday, March 17th at 5 p.m. At Wednesday's regular meeting, the committee discussed the proposed replacement of the high school fencing along Gallop Hill Road for an estimated cost of $56,000, and the existing football scorecard with a multi-sport scorecard at a cost of $49,000. The existing fence has long been in a state of disrepair, has needed to be replaced for many years. The new track is designed for multiple sports, but the football scoreboard does not support other sports because it's not programmable. If replaced, the Parks and Rec Department has expressed interest in repurposing the existing scoreboard at another field. The Finance Committee noted that the funds for the 2 projects could come or would come from surplus funds left over from the track and field reconstruction, but the committee also noted that the final estimates for the project were substantially higher than the original estimates, no fault of the PMBC. And the committee stated that while it understood the reasons for moving ahead with both projects, they're not included in the capital needs budget, and the projects should be prioritized in comparison with the overall capital needs of the school system, which includes 2 replacement roof projects totaling over $3 million. On a separate note, there has been some interest and speculation regarding several cameras noted on town roads this winter. And Mayor, I'm going to stop here. Is that something you were going to cover in your report?
No,
the road sensing?
Yeah, no, feel free to cover that. That's an interesting information.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So there were comments on Facebook about what appeared to be cameras, and there's speculation about whether they're looking in homes and other humorous comments. And what they actually are, the Public Works Director provided some early information about them. And this is a paraphrase of what he provided. The cameras are actually sensors which help the highway superintendent manage the timing of and rate of salt spreading during winter operations. Although he says the benefits are difficult to quantify, in summary, there have been several instances where having actual road temperature data reduced the application of labor and material resources. One particular instance was the dusting of snow received last week. With temperatures falling below freezing, this could have been a concern. It was apparently enough of a concern for the state DOT to mobilize trucks to salt. But in monitoring the road temperature sensors, 2 of which are mounted in chronically colder areas, the highway superintendent didn't mobilize forces since the road temperatures remained well above freezing. Based on the normal crew size that would have been mobilized, this saved the town about $1,500 in that one instance. The situation repeated itself the following night with the same savings. And the Finance Committee looks forward to the final report. One last note, we did talk about and move the long-standing Ledyard Housing Authority pilot. We moved that on to finance, so we're encouraged about the opportunity to get that finalized. Everything else is on our agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for finance? Hearing none. Land use?
Land use is not met. We do have one item on the agenda for this evening.
Thank you. Liaison reports? Mrs. Engels, Andra.
Board of Education is meeting tonight. Last week, they had their strategic planning meeting. The board's current strategic plan is nearing the end of its life cycle. It is a multi-year vision document. They will issue a request for proposal or an RFP for a consultant to guide creation of the next plan. That plan will include community surveying and focus groups from the student body, the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation, Navy, and the community at large. The strategic plan establishes a multi-year vision and plan for Ledyard schools. The process will begin at a date to be determined in the coming months. Also, students K-8 are fully phased back in as of Monday this week, and the high school will fully phase in over the next few weeks. And that is my report from the Board of Ed.
Thank you. Any questions for Board of Ed? Any other liaison reports? Mary?
Okay, I attended the senior commission meeting this afternoon, and they did a hybrid meeting. About 2/3 of the membership came to the senior center. They were socially distanced and they were all masked, and it worked out very well. And the new chairman is Kent Harding. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Dombrowski.
Last week, the Agricultural Committee had their meeting. They had a representative from the Department of Agriculture provide a presentation on the different grant options that were available to farmers, and in specific about the grant for the community farm that with one of the original intent, if everybody remembers when we put the ordinance together, was the purpose of the agricultural ordinance for the Agricultural Commission. One of the things that they're supposed to work with the farmers to inform them of grants that are available. That goes outside the PA 490 Act that goes to smaller farms that wouldn't be covered. So it was informative, very informative discussion was had. That's my report.
Thank you. Any other reports?
Linda, Tom has his digital hand up.
I do. Yes,
Oh.
I have 2 reports.
Yes, thank you.
So inland, wetland, and water courses met on the 2nd of March. They considered 2 applications, one of them from the town Parks and Recs to do what I believe the Tri-Town Trail. Other than that, there were no remarkable items from that meeting. The retirement board met on the 16th, Tuesday, and they paid several invoices and approved a motion to pay out a late retirement benefit to one of the recently retired town employees. And that's my report.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, I just have a couple of things. Some of you probably remember in the fall of 2019, the Beautification Committee planted 3,000 daffodil bulbs. Unfortunately, a year later, we were right in the beginning of the pandemic. And while the daffodils were certainly beautiful, I think we were somewhat distracted. So 2 years later, they should all be popping up soon. In fact, some of them have started to not bloom yet, but some of them are, you know, starting to come up. So start looking for them because it's quite a show. And it's an exciting thing, certainly for Ledyard. The farmers market starts on June 2nd. Applications are coming in. I think you're going to all be excited. Lots of new, several new vendors, lots of new things. And of course, all those food trucks, you know, how much we like our food. And let's see, what else did I have? We will be having a workshop. You will be getting the agenda on Monday. On the 31st, a workshop between the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, the Town Council members who are interested, and the Board of Ed workshop on the school projects and where we are and what we need to do to get to the finish line. I am not going to, I'm going to make an executive decision, and this will not be the meeting for lessons learned because I don't think we're finished yet with learning lessons. So I would like to have an additional meeting when it's totally finished called Lessons Learned. And but this meeting is just how we're going to get to the finish line. And any counselors that are interested, I hope you will attend if you have, certainly if you have something to contribute. And then finally, Youth and Social Services Board is starting to really get their feet wet. It's a new board, lots of new members. They're excited about your event on the 7th. And at this time, they're focusing on community outreach through the senior citizens, through the schools, through the food pantry, etc. So they're on their way to doing good things. And that is what I had. Anyone else before we move on? No. Okay. So it would be now time for the mayor's report.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to add one quick thing about the senior commission meeting, which was that all the commissioners are also fully vaccinated. So they were all vaccinated, they were wearing masks, they were socially distanced. So I felt that it was probably a reasonable thing to let them get back in there for that meeting as they start preparing for a reopening in the somewhat near future. So just wanted to give you an update on the Morgan Barn fit out for the food pantry. That's going very well. Our heating and cooling system has arrived. The upstairs has been prepped and primed and ready for paint. The downstairs is going about the same way. They've contracted for a sidewalk to go up to the back. So for people, handicapped accessibility and whatnot, there will be a handicapped accessible ramp at the back. That will lead from what was the former tennis courts over there. So people could pull up right there and have easy access for the pantry. I was also invited to participate in a Chamber of Commerce Young Leadership Conference. That was on March 11th. I spoke to 25 to 30, what I will call young aspiring politicians. These are people that either aspire to high office or people that want to be involved in municipal office. So it was a great discussion, spent about 20 minutes talking with them about the role and what it means, and a little Q&A. So nice opportunity there. As you probably know, I attended an adoption ceremony last Friday. It was the best feel-good moment of the week, and I congratulated Kevin Gordon earlier because he wrote a beautiful piece in the day. And I told Kevin the best part about it was positive news, and it was the most read story of the day. So people do believe in positive news and positive stories, and that was good proof of that. So nice to see. Kudos to you, Kevin. We have our bond rating call coming up. So we've had another workshop as we prepare our, it's like a death by PowerPoint, about 20 slides that we will do with Standard & Poor's raters on April 8th. But we are continuing to polish them up in terms of the status of the state of affairs for the town of Ledyard financially. And I think it looks very, very good. And I am eager to talk to them because I think we have fared very well. attended a SACIA board meeting, that is the Southeastern Connecticut Housing Alliance. That meeting was on the 12th. There was a discussion, a lengthy discussion about desegregate CT legislation. This is legislation that speaks to making zoning state as opposed to local law, trying to bring equity to housing and lower income housing and whatnot. But ultimately, at the end of the meeting, the board could not unanimously decide to move in favor of supporting the legislation as a whole. And I was one of them. I could support some pieces of it, but not all of it. So it kind of ended as a stalemate. Got an email from CCM regarding the American Rescue Act. There's, as you know, $1.9 trillion bill. 2.55 billion will be coming to the state of Connecticut. Ledyard will be receiving 1,443,574. That's the town side. The Board of Education receives their own additional $1,845,000. So we each have uses that we can use the money for. And Roxanne has that up on the screen for you, but it basically boils down to 4 things, which is impact to residents, small businesses, and nonprofits or industry, investments in public water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Let's see, 4 items, responding to workers performing essential work during the public health emergency. So that would be premium pay or so-called hazard pay. And the 4th one was to offset reductions in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. So I'm bringing this up to you now because the money will be flowing in. We're expecting right around July 1st to get the first half of the money. And then the second half of the money will come about a year, almost exactly a year later. So we're working on various things, but one of the considerations, in my opinion, and I just leave it at that right now, is possibly the sewer line expansion. We have talked about that in Ledyard Center, and that could be a long-term solution to growing the grand list, improving the watershed area for Groton utilities, and really being something that investment could provide long-term growth and payback for the community as a whole. So, but it's something that we're going to have a workshop at finance or wherever you'd like to have that discussion as to how to invest that money. It does need to be fully expended by the end of the calendar year of 2024. So we've got some time, but that's where that stands right now. COVID update, we have 3 officers that unfortunately have COVID. 1 more is on watch right now, so it could be 4. The case rate overall is increasing in the last 10 days, unfortunately. Most of the cases that we're seeing right now are school-age children, very, very few adults. And in the hospitals, we're still in very good shape. So today we had a emergency management meeting at 2:30, and L&M has only reported 8 in the hospital with 2 in intensive care, and Bacchus has 6 hospitalized with 3 in intensive care. So it's still pretty limited, and both hospitals have readily admitted that they have plenty of room and ability to flex up if the need persists or grows. So that was good news. I also wanted to share with you the update in terms of vaccinations. Specific to Ledyard, 93% of our population age 75 and up has had at least the first dose, if not the second dose. 81% of the 65 to 74-year-old population, again, has received at least the first dose. And our overall population right now is 1 out of 4 Ledyard residents have received the first dose. So when I look at the town-by-town run of vaccinations, Ledyard, again, is doing very well with that. So there is a clinic tomorrow in Stonington. I posted it earlier in the week. It is full. Ledyard is requesting about 1,000 doses a week. They're getting about 400, so substantially less than they would like to do for multiple clinics. But nonetheless, they're doing clinics with what they can get and as quickly as they can. So again, kudos to Ledyard. They've done tremendous work. I also wanted to let you know I have hired a new mayor's assistant. Her name is Kristen Chapman. She comes to us from the Mohegan tribal government and the Mohegan Sun, where she spent about 14 years working in both of those facilities. So Kristen is a Ledyard resident. She's lived in Ledyard for 14 years, and I'm very excited to have her start. She's going to be starting on April 5th. So it's been a few months since I've had somebody assisting, and I am looking forward to having the assistance. Lastly, second to last, I wanted to thank Ernie Bailey. He's a police officer, was a police officer in Ledyard. He retired today. Today was his last day on the beat. And Ernie is moving to Oklahoma to be near family, but Ernie had a tremendous military career. He then had a full Westerly police career, and then he spent 12 years in Ledyard. So he certainly knows how to work, and he has done a heck of a job. And Ernie did a good job of keeping things in order, and my best to Ernie and his family going forward. The last item is our building official. As you know, Randy Dalton is retiring a week from today. We've had the job posted for 2 months. We've had very little interest. And in the meantime, the Council of Governments came up with a solution because Preston has also lost their building official to retirement. So the Council of Governments came up with a kind of a quasi-regional solution for us right now, which is a building official that is going to serve in Ledyard for a couple days a week and in Preston for a couple days a week. And we have that arrangement ready to go at least until the end of the fiscal year to try to see how we do with it. If it's working for us, if we can expand, which I think we're going to want to expand the service. But I'm happy about it. It's, you know, I believe in regionalization of some of these services, and I think this is a good opportunity to get some regionalization in. And the individual that's going to be working for us, whose name is Tom Weber, has a couple decades of experience as a building official. So he's a certified building official. He was in the commercial building trades for many years. And I know that, you know, there will be no hiccup in the transition from Randy on Wednesday, the 31st, to Tom on Thursday, April 1st. And that, I believe, is all I have for you right now.
Does anyone have any questions of the mayor? Councilor Ingalls.
It's really more of a comment. And thank you for continuing to explore ideas with the COG. I was in a webinar today it was a joint webinar with CCM and Advanced CT on, the topic was bridging the gap between land use and economic development. And one of the participants asked a question about unique challenges in Connecticut. And what came up is that Connecticut is one of 2 states in the nation that does not have county government. And that does pose really unique challenges. So if we're looking to our COGs to help with some of these regional issues, I think it's really important that we at least explore the possibility of doing these kinds of things when the opportunity presents. So thank you.
You're welcome. Great comment.
Anyone else have comments or questions of the mayor? Mayor, I would also like to commend Ledyard for their services. We had a senior who we deliver, a senior who we deliver to from the food pantry. And the seniors we deliver to from the pantry, we've been kind of checking to make sure, and I know Scott does the same thing, as far as to make sure they've been vaccinated. Now, this particular senior is not a member of the senior center, so we've been trying to get her vaccinated, and she was just totally stressed out, and Ledyard stepped in. Not only did they get her scheduled for an appointment, they sent an Uber to go pick her and her husband up. And so they did the one and done shot, which makes it easy because now we don't have to reschedule another appointment. But Ledge Lighthouse District is really stepped up. So I just wanted to add to your comments there.
Yes, they have worked very, very hard, and tomorrow we have a long-term disaster recovery meeting, but one of the things that we have to do is identify homebound Ledyard residents, and so to that end, we've created a list of, I mean, it's very short, less than 10 people, but we have to be prepared to get out in the field with them, probably with the assistance of the Ledyard VNA, to get those that are homebound vaccinated as well. So that's something that's going to be coming up shortly. So again, they've taken an active role in that too. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have no old business. Would anyone like to amend the agenda under new business? Hearing none, I'll move on to admin action.
I move to recommend the town council to set a video conference public hearing date on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to receive comments and recommendations regarding proposed amendments to ordinance number 100-018, an ordinance providing for archery hunting on certain town-owned lands and certain open space properties.
Second.
Any comments? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Grattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Community relations. Mr. Washington, you're muted.
Bear with me 1 second, please. I wanted to read the motion, and I just lost on the side of me, I have another screen that shows what the minutes are, and I lost it. So bear with me 1 second, please. Sorry about the delay.
Would you like Mrs. Ingles to help you out there?
It's just coming up now. It took a little while.
Okay.
Just took a little while. Thank you, everybody, for your. There's a motion to adopt a proposed town council position statement regarding the Board of Education plans, policies, programs as contained in the draft dated March 17th, 2021.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Thank you. Just as some information, what happened was during one of our subcommittee meetings for the community relations, the question came up with Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation. They asked us if we were taking a position on the school board, and because we talked about the fact that the town council doesn't control the school board. It's a separate entity. They run on their own. We do the financial portion of it, but we don't have direct oversight of the school board. It's a school board. But we said, yes, we believe we'll put together a statement. And from that discussion, the committee came up with the following statement. And I'll go through and read the statement, its entirety, if there's a need to.
I think, does everybody have access to it on the screen? I would assume everybody does, Mr. Washington.
So is there any question?
I would say, are there any questions? We're certainly happy to read it if anybody would like that to be read. I would just like to add good work, committee.
It was definitely a group effort. Thank you.
If there are no questions, I would ask Roxanne to call the roll.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item. Oh, that's finance.
Yep. This is Councilor Solms. I move to approve to expend $12,600 from account 210-90305-58915 CNR undesignated to replace the existing lighting in the George Dieter Room at the Ledyard Senior Center Parks and Rec Facility per state bid quote from Gray Bar.
Councilor Malone seconds.
Thank you. So the town has undertaken a number of LED lighting replacement projects in the past, notably our street lights. Most recent project, I believe, is down at the water treatment plant. And this one is for the senior center. We did not have to go to bid on this because this is from a state bid quote as mentioned in the motion. And in the long term, it will save money both in replacing bulbs because LED bulbs last longer, and also an expense because they greatly reduce the amount of electricity consumed. So good project. We thought the council should approve it.
And I think, Bill, if I recollect, the timing is perfect because the center is closed. And if we wait any longer, they'll be up and going. And so the timing is really good now.
Great point. Thank you, Chairman.
Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to authorize the mayor to submit an application for a SCCOG Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments corridor study in the amount of up to $150,000 for Route 12 in Gales Ferry. Oh, in addition, appropriate up to $15,000, 10% local match in parentheses from account 210-90305-58915 CNR undesignated upon receipt of grant approval notification.
Councilor Malone seconds.
So we've had a number of studies, both in Ledyard Center and along Route 12 in Gales Ferry for improving the corridor, to improve the economic climate, attract business, and as the mayor mentioned, increase the grand list. Unfortunately, past studies have not supported, or we have not been supported by the state DOT in at least one of them, and we have not been able to secure grants for upgrades of those areas. We did well in Ledyard Center. We're hoping to finally do well in Gales Ferry. In the Finance Committee discussion, we talked about the fact that $150,000 is a lot of money for a study. But it was revealed that past studies were short on data and heavy on photographs, and they were great studies. They projected great ideas, but when the state DOT doesn't like your idea and they have say so on the road, doesn't matter how nice they look. Therefore, money well spent means do the grant right in the first place. So our concerns were, would we spend $150,000 and still get a bunch of pictures and no data to work with? And we've been assured that this is a minimum amount for the grant. We are also saying that we will not spend more than this, but for $150,000 with the oversight of the town planner, we expect to get a workable study that we can then apply for enhancements to the Gales Ferry Route 12 corridor.
Any questions? Any comments? Mr. Washington? No? Oh, no. Mr. Marshall.
Bill, there's some
interest in the Dow Chemical property a few months back. Has there been any movement on that?
Councilor Marshall, I do not know. I think that is pretty far outside of this study, and the mayor's got his hand up. Maybe he can speak to it better than I can.
Yeah, so there was a firm that expressed serious interest in the property. As you may recall, we put together a proposal for tax abatements for them. That was coupled with the state, and the total package was about $18 million of tax credits and abatements. And much to our chagrin, the company was expecting about $60 million of tax credits and abatements. So we could not bridge that gap, and so no other activities happened on that site at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move that we authorize overspending the legal fees account number 101-10101-5310 for legal expenses through June 30, 2021. Funding is to be transferred to the legal fee account 101-10101-5310 at year end.
Councilor Malone seconds.
Thank you. So we normally do not discuss legal fee funding. We don't talk about the reasons for it. We don't talk about the actual amount, or we talk about it as little as possible, because it's part of a strategy to protect the town that we not talk a lot about why we're spending money on legal fees and how much, because when companies decide to sue the town, they look at your legal budget. So we pass this without comment. Oh, and one other thing, we are treating it much in the same way that we did the Public Works Winter Operations budget. This is not an open check. It's just to authorize spending as needed. Therefore, we did not put an amount up to, we did not put a minimum. So if we don't need to spend the money, we won't, bottom line.
Any questions or further discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Ingalls,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to set a hybrid model, in parentheses, video conference and in-person, parentheses, close, public hearing date to be held on April 26, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Ledyard High School auditorium regarding the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
Councilor Malone seconds.
Thank you. So given that we do not have direction yet from the governor regarding whether we will hold public hearings and budget referendums and town meetings the way we did last year, which is we did it all online, and the council ended up having to vote on the budget because we did not have a referendum. We don't know what's going to happen this year, but we want to get the dates on the calendar and the notices posted if in fact we are going to go to public hearings and town meetings and referendums. So we're going to do both. We're going to set up hybrid so that we can videotape, we can have some people present, we can have the public attend online if the governor continues with the current restrictions or regulations. So we're trying to cover all our bases, bottom line. And we're going to do both for these, assuming the governor allows us to continue as we normally do. And if not, we'll change the plan at the last minute.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sons about this? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to set the annual town meeting to be a hybrid model, video conference and in person regarding the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget on May 17, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the high school auditorium, and to adjourn to a referendum to be held on May 18, 2021 between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. In addition, should the referendum fail, the subsequent referendum will be held between the hours of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 6 of the Town Charter.
Councilor Malone seconds.
Thank you. So this is the same thing, just a continuation of the last, preparing for all possibilities.
I do have a question.
Certainly.
Was there any consideration, I'm an optimist, and I sure hope that a lot of people will vote on the budget. But I think our past experience shows that not many people vote on the budget. Have you considered, or was there any discussion, instead of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., that it be 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
We did not. That's an interesting question.
I mean, I could argue both ways because I
Yeah.
know there's concern with people
Sure.
maybe can't get there.
Yep.
I guess, but I'm looking to save a buck.
Yeah.
And I guess my second thought would be, can we at least, I don't know if we have any control over this, can we at least ask that we don't have as many people there as there would be at a presidential election? I mean, honestly, a handful of people could do this.
Yes. Yeah. In years past, the gymnasium at Ledyard Center School was empty all day long, and staffed primarily with a bunch of people doing all the work, but no one there to come and vote. So, and this is not a president. Well, it's a referendum on the budget. There's nothing else going on, so it's even more poorly attended.
Mayor, do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually think it's, I was just trying to look back at the data that I had on my phone in terms of the very, very few people that came out and voted for the budgets in the last several years. But I could definitely support the noon to 8 p.m. concept. I think it does allow, it does allow people to still get there and vote at the end of the day. So if somebody was going to work and instead of voting before going to work, they might vote after. But I think it's worthwhile, and you're right. Every time we vote, it costs money.
Mrs. Ingles?
Do we have any way to know what hours are more popular for people voting? I know the dinner, like the to and from work hours are, the most popular, but for budget voting, do we have a way to know?
Well, I think historically what it has been in I would say elections as opposed to budget votes, but in election years, 6 to 8 a.m. is usually very busy, as is say 4 p.m. to 7:30. With the middle part of the day, the 9 to 10 a.m. till 3 o'clock being very quiet. So if municipal elections and other elections hold true to the budget elections, it doesn't help this situation because you've got a block of people that do come and tend to vote early, but again, very, very few.
My recollection is that, and this is based on paying attention to people calling for vote counts on Facebook. It is just exactly what you said for budget years or budget votes too, Mayor. It's very busy, 6 to 8, quiet all day, picks up around 3 or 4 and gets busy 6 to 8. I wonder if we could save the same amount of money if, let me say this differently. If we cut the hours, we have to keep the staff, because we can't cut the hours and the staff, I don't think. Because if you force people into fewer hours, the staff will be very busy for the hours that you're left with. So here's my question. Could we just reduce the staff and keep the hours? Because I think if we cut the hours, we're definitely going to have complaints. If we reduce the staff, I don't think anybody's going to even notice.
I don't think that's our decision. I don't think we can make that decision. I think we could probably recommend it or ask that that be the case, because I think we're all feeling we don't want to cut the hours, because if 25 people can't vote because they can't get there, that would be discouraging. I do find it ironic, though, that it says that in addition, should the referendum fail, it will be held between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, Linda, because I think those words come out of the charter.
I do not believe they do, because I looked at the charter.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now as well.
Interestingly enough, and I'm going to go a little off topic here, but we should all check this. When I was looking in the charter, there is a reference to Chapter 9, Paragraph 1 or something, and there is no such thing in the charter. So it looks like the last charter revision, there was a little error made there, but we can look in and see if we can clean that up at some point. But I did not find that in the charter. So maybe somebody else can find it.
That's what I'm looking. I'm trying to remember. So I remember there was something about all this.
Could we ask Roxanne if we have to make a decision on this tonight? I don't think we do.
You don't.
The registrars are in tomorrow, so I can ask the registrars tomorrow what their staffing plan was for this vote, and then I can get that to you.
That would be good. We can just not vote, not act. Would that be appropriate, Roxanne?
Yeah, just take no action, and we can bring it back next council meeting.
And that's what we can do. If that's fine with everybody?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Next item is Mr. Saw. No, that would be Mr. Dombrowski.
Throw it on the other. All right. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a proposed lease amendment agreement between the town of Ledyard and Mr. Walter Major to increase the term of the lease to 5 years for the purpose of farming a portion of the Clark Farm property located at 1025 Colonel Ledyard Highway, as contained in the draft dated March 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Councilor Washington.
This was the subject of our public hearing earlier this evening. Big changes for the lease overall is it's going to a 5-year lease. It does provide a provision for Mr. Major to farm the western portion, about 5 acres on the western side of Joe Clark Brook, if and when that gets cleared. And also allows Mr. Major with a 5-year term to apply for some loans to support his farming activities.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yep, just an explanation like you did before, Kevin, on the hay, the reason for the.
Oh yeah, so actually the mayor came up, but thank you. Yeah, Mr. Major had been farming his land for the last number of years and it's been an annual lease because he'd been farming corn, which is an annual crop, but he's going to switch over to hay, which is more of a long-term investment crop. So that's the reason for the increase of the term to 5 years as well.
Thank you. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. And that is our final item. Mr. Dombrowski.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made and seconded. This meeting is adjourned without exception. Thank you all.
Good night, all.
Good night,
Hi,
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Good night, everyone.